Lily Bergamo was announced at the Tokyo Game Show in April of 2013 as a PS4 console exclusive. It was set to be Grasshopper Manufacture's first game after their acquisition by GungHo Online Entertainment. They were a company that brought the world the MMO Ragnarok and the mobile game Puzzles and Dragons. The philosophy of Lily Bergamo's design was to reflect this new partnership by blending the MMO and smartphone development strengths of GungHo with the punk rock design and storytelling of Grasshopper Manufacture. Set in the near future of 2043, you play as Tae Lori. She's this girl or robot android thing, I'm not really sure, and her mission is to punch the ground until bandages pop out and wrap up giants.
What kind of a game is it? Well, just imagine the Chinese noodle ramen. No, you should not do that. What kind of genre is it? Supreme action. This is an action game, extreme action game. What kind of world is it? Maybe difficult for you to understand. Characters, worldviews. Well, the main character is a woman. Grasshopper is very good at main character, women main characters. We have produced several titles so far. Just like nurturing a new young actress, so we try to make her more beautiful for you to enjoy. We are rather elated on this. Well, this is an action game.
Lily was set to be an online action game centered around a crewing experience and having a mechanic in which when the player would die in the game, their data would then be used to spawn as an enemy player in the game world. There was also supposed to be a companion app on mobile phones that allowed players to play online and transfer data from phone to PS4, but the details on this are scarce.
We try to work with smartphones. Well, we can play it with the PS4, but smartphone.
Sadly, there was never any gameplay shown at the Tokyo Game Show in 2013, but there was a promise to show more at TGS 2014 and a planned release slated for December of 2014. Unfortunately, you know how these things go.
Tokyo Game Show is going to be held this month, and then more details will be given at the Tokyo Game Show. Maybe not.
A few months later, Lily Bergamo was canceled and never heard from again. This is truly a travesty to the gaming industry at large, and Grasshopper Manufacture will never repair their image after this. They're basically the new Konami now, and therefore dead to me. I mean, just look at this trailer. This game had so much potential. It literally could have been the greatest game ever made. But now we'll never know. What a waste. Thank you for watching this episode of Dead Franchises. I hope you enjoyed this in-depth retrospective. Lily Bergamo's cancellation is the greatest thing to ever happen, and I'll explain why in 3 little words.
Let it die.
So, Suda51 didn't keep his promise at the Tokyo Game Show 2014 by showing Lily Bergamo gameplay. What we got instead was a live-action trailer showing a battle between what we can assume are player characters fighting with all sorts of makeshift weaponry. It reminded me a lot of Manhunt. From the brief footage shown, I, and many gamers, extrapolated that this would be some sort of arena PvP brawler named Let It Die. And it was set to release in October of 2015 as a free-to-play PS4 exclusive. The details of what the endgame would end up being were unclear, but 2 things were certain. 1, Lily Bergamo was officially cancelled, and 2, someone's out of a job. Wow. The fine folks at Grasshopper took their concepts for Lily Bergamo and reworked them into Let It Die, minus the mobile phone app integration, but I'm sure no one's crying over its absence. What is known that the player death turning into an enemy in the game mechanic is present in Let It Die, which I will cover later on. So Let It Die didn't make its 2015 release date, and there was little word as to what was going on with the development outside of citing more time needed. In early 2016, it had a release date of soon, followed by this video Grasshopper put out to explain what the game was all about.
This is
party cracker, okay? Party cracker is in my mouth. Okay? Ready? Drum roll, start!
Oh no, I completely get it. That was until December 3rd at PSX 2016, when the Santa Claus of localization, GO Corsi, he announces that Let It Die is dropping on the same day, free to all PS4 owners. I downloaded the game immediately as it became available, and I've played it every day since. There is a lot to set up about this game, so I'm going to do my best to try and explain all the little mechanics, and I think it'll make more sense by the end of it. Here's the setup. Mark Hamill tells us that the year is 2026, not 2024, oddly enough. So does that mean Lily Bergamo is still on? Anyways, southwestern Tokyo has split off into an island by itself after a series of earthquakes. The island is covered in a strange fog, and a giant tower rises up from the island, so high that it reaches heaven itself. Maybe. I don't know what's up there, actually. Shortly after the intro, you're introduced to the best character in the past decade, your lovable Uncle Death.
I forgot to mention, my name is Uncle Death. I have a feeling we're gonna get along just fine.
The best way I could describe him is that he's some sort of Mexican/Norwegian skater that acts as your guide to the Tower of Barbs, and he's also a master of quips, you know, the comedic relief here. Many people don't like Uncle Death because he uses senpai in a non-ironic fashion.
Senpai! I was waiting for you.
But fuck, man, can't something just be fun for fun's sake? Does everything have to be ironic for it to be funny now? Anyway, he's voiced by one of the Dudesons, which I didn't know what that was, but apparently it's some sort of Finnish CKY equivalent. Anyway, the voice actor does a decent job of making Uncle Death very entertaining and lovable. So you play as a bag of meat juices, which stands as your avatar/main character that has a mission of...
The goal of the game is pretty simple. Just make it to the top of the Tower of Barbs. It's like a hack and slash roguelike kind of a thing.
You gotta see what's up there, or save the world or something, I'm not really sure. There's a meta component to the story since you're actually a gamer in the Haters Arcade playing Let It Die on that Beetle over there. That's actually a game system known as the Death Drive 128, and Let It Die is the game you're playing on it, it being that Beetle thing over there. I'll just let Uncle Death take this one.
I'm talking about the Death Drive 128, of course, man. You were just playing it, remember? Hey, pretty cool, huh? Pretty badass? It's the best game console ever, and this game, Let It Die. It's probably the greatest game ever made. Yeah!
After a brief rundown of the story, you get to pick a character. Who you pick in the beginning, male or female, it's just for looks because appearance has no bearing on the gameplay outside of the voices. Regardless, they'll all start as a rank 1 all-rounder. And let's just say, don't get too attached to them, or anyone for that matter. After you leave the train station, you take this escalator to the first floor, and you're thrown into your first fight. Once you win, Uncle Death stores your body in a freezer, so you can use it later, and you unlock a second playable avatar at this point. He never does this again for you, so this is kind of a freebie, and you'll have to pay coins if you want to build a new character. You might have guessed it by now, but Let It Die is a roguelike action game with the sole objective of climbing the fucking tower, main. I've heard people refer to this game as a comedic Dark Souls, or Suda Souls as it's known, but there are a lot of aspects that set Let It Die apart from, well, anything I've ever played. You travel through the tower in a nomadic fashion, picking up bits and pieces of armor and weapons found in chests or left behind by enemies after you kill them, and you live off the flora and fauna you come across. You can equip up to 3 weapons per arm and swap between them on the fly, or you can just use your bare fist, which is my weapon of choice. All the weapons and armor have durability durability, and many people complained about this, but once they break, they're gone forever. No repairing in this game. With the exception of the fist, which have unlimited durability, just like your own fists, hence why they're the most useful weapon in the game. Remember, the quicker you learn not to grow attached to anything and let it die, the better experience you'll have with this game on all levels. Trust me. On each floor are enemies and traps to avoid. The enemies range from various types of genetically modified creatures to absolute psychopaths. My advice to new players starting out is to take it slow. Learn the controls. Just run the first few floors until you start to get comfortable. The enemy AI isn't the most sophisticated. Most of the enemies will just run directly at you, and most enemies can be handled by just baiting them to you and walking backwards to dodge, or by blocking them with your weapon. If you're quick enough in the blocking, you can parry the enemy, but it's not necessary to use all the time. You can stun lock most enemies in the game and break through their guards, so it's no big deal. If you want to be stealthy, you can click R3 in to crouch walk and sneak up behind an enemy to perform a suplex that deals massive damage. Sudo loves his wrestling. If you sneak up on an enemy from above, you can perform a Hurricane Rana, which is nifty against high-level baddies. Or if you don't have time for any of that shit, you can run at the enemy, hit the X button, and dropkick their head off. Up to you, man. Keep in mind, your health is extremely precious, and dying comes with a host of consequences. We're gonna cover that in a minute. But don't fret, health is plentiful. You can catch live creatures on the ground and eat them alive to regain health. They just taste better when they're wriggling around in your mouth. You can also store them in your underpants for later, or throw them in the fire to grill them and increase their nutritional value. Or better yet, you can squish them between your toes to produce mushrooms from their corpse. Speaking of mushrooms, they're all over the goddamn place in the tower, and their use can turn the tide of battle into your favor.
Trust the fungus. Trust the fungus.
Some mushrooms have restorative properties, some provide boosts to certain stats for a limited time. For example, a crush shroom will raise your attack by 50% for 30 seconds. Other shrooms act as weapons to be thrown at enemies like grenades. The way the mushrooms are handled takes some getting used to. They're controlled by the touchpad on the DualShock 4. Pressing in the right touchpad eats the selected mushroom. Pressing in the left on the touchpad throws the mushroom, and swiping left and right on the touchpad swaps between the mushrooms. Just make sure you get this down and don't accidentally eat a boom shroom. The combat in the game is very fast-paced, and the majority of the fights boil down to just breaking through an enemy's guard until you disintegrate their body into bloody chunks. Occasionally, you might stun an enemy, which will trigger a brutal kill, or this game's version of fatalities. Brutal kills give you additional experience and are just fun to watch.
Gnarly.
You can level up your weapon experience, which will lower its stamina consumption, raise its attack power, and unlock the rage moves for that particular weapon. Most of the weapons range from household items like clothes irons and hammers, to fireworks guns and military weapons. As you go along, you will find blueprints, which you can then hand off to Space Hitler, and he can craft you new weapons and armors if you bring him the right materials. Personally, I chose to stick with the fist through at least the first 15 floors of the game because they don't degrade and can stun lock most of the enemies in the game if you time it right. You see that blue circle up there? That's the rage meter. When it fills, you get a rage attack, which is an extremely powerful attack that will often stun or completely disintegrate an enemy. You'll want to save these up for the most bullshit enemies in the game, known graciously as the haters. Haters are high-leveled assholes that invade the tower and are likely responsible for the majority of deaths in the game. Remember that Lily Bergamo mechanic that was recycled? Here it is in all its bloody glory. Haters are the remnants of other players of Let It Die. When a player dies in the game, their character data is resurrected as a hater in another player's world. There's usually only 1 or 2 haters per floor, and you can easily sneak up on them if you have to, but they won't be much of a problem if you keep your distance and strike when the moment is right. You can easily kill a level 50 hater with a level 1 character if you know what you're doing. The benefit of killing haters is that they'll drop lots of coins, high-level level gear and weapons, and they'll also drop some splithium, which is used to upgrade your weapons at the waiting room. That's that blue stuff there. Every few floors are sub-bosses, which are pretty straightforward fights. Same strategy applies. Don't die. Every 10 floors are the big bosses, which I won't show due to spoilers, but if they seem random and out of place, well, welcome to your first Grasshopper game. Here's your complimentary gay ghost. The bosses' backstories are covered in these little pulp comics you can find on the ground. What the... Alright, without any further ado, let's talk about Death. No, not him. But he's fucking cool though.
You were sleeping with your mouth open, just so you know. Come on, let's play.
When you die, you'll meet Kawako Seto, a direct hell representative. You can pay her 1 death medal to resurrect where your body lies on the ground with full health, or you could just let it die right there on the floor. If you choose not to pay a death medal, you have a couple of options still. You can switch to another character in the freezer and then climb the tower and kill your hater form, or you can choose to pay coins you found in the tower to rescue your body where you left it behind with all the weapons, experience, and items, and start over from the bottom floor. Currently, death medals are the only items in the game that you can pay real money to buy. But stick with me here, you don't really need to buy them to win. Now I've heard people refer to Let It Die as a pay-to-win game. That means people assume you need to pay for death medals to even have a shot at reaching the top of the Tower of Barbs. While death medals do make life a little easier, they're not really needed to progress in the game. Especially when you get the hang of it, or if you click on this link and follow my little trick, you'll never need to buy another death medal again. You actually earn death medals in-game without paying real money. The developers give you generous amounts of death medals for just logging in daily, or you can complete quests to unlock them. Death medals can also be used to upgrade your item box storage, which is their most valuable use in my opinion. For the low price of 2 death medals, you get 10 slots of additional storage in your waiting room. You can also use the direct hell menu to convert death medals to coins, but I honestly wouldn't bother as gold is plentiful in this game. The key to progress in this game is to climb the fucking tower! Each floor has an escalator that you need to seek out that leads to the next floor. You also unlock these elevators on each floor that you come across, and you can ride them back down to the waiting room to dump off your goods and level up, and thereafter ride it back up to where you left off in the tower. There are many branching pathways in the Tower of Barbs, so you'll find a few escalators on one floor that will lead to different parts of the tower. You'll want to pay attention to where you're going because every time you change floors, all the enemies respawn. During the escalator ride, you're treated to a play-by-play of all your actions on the floor. You get to see all the kills you made and all the treasure you collected, which makes the loading screens in between floors something to look forward to. You'll want to try and seek out the hidden floors because you'll find new blueprints, items, and stamps. Oh yeah, stamps. They act as a bonus objective in Let It Die. You find these little musical kiosks where you play a couple of notes on a busted-ass Beatmania machine. Don't worry if you have white boy rhythm like me because these games are super easy, and if you get enough stamps in a row, Uncle Death will reward you with something special. There's 1 stamp machine per floor, so keep a lookout. Searching the back floors, you might run into the secret shop where Space Hitler's twin brother and conjoined twin Hitler fetus will sell you rare materials and blueprints. Once your boxers are packed to the brim full of goods, or you're tired of climbing, you can ride the elevators you find back to the waiting room. Keep in mind, you do have to pay in-game coins to ride the elevator back down, or you can activate an express pass and ride the golden elevator as many times as you want for free within a 24-hour period. You get express passes from the devs sometimes, and I believe later on they're going to allow you to purchase them with real money, but right now you can only get them from the devs. When you exit the elevator to the waiting room, a giant brain sucks the juices and coins out of your body, which are kept in banks in your waiting room. Okay, so the waiting room has a lot of things going on in it. You can shop at plain old Space Hitler's shop and craft gear. Gear crafted in the waiting room has a higher durability and power if you take the time to upgrade it. Over here is the storage unit, just dump all your shit here. Next to it is the rewards box where you get bonuses for logging in daily and quest rewards. This stripper over here with the horns is the Mushroom Magistrate.
Oh, how I've been waiting for you, fellow believer, in the power of mushrooms.
Man, she sure likes mushrooms. She sells you decals. Decals give you passive perks like the dumbbell, which will give you 7% extra strength, and your character can only equip one decal at the start, but the higher rank characters that you unlock can attach multiple at one time. You can also spend 50,000 coins to get Mushroom Stew from the Mushroom Magistrate, but this is a huge gamble. You're paying for a random decal that's permanent, so once you equip it, you won't lose it upon death, or by ripping it off, or by losing a raid.
Good choice. I will now cook my special mushroom stew. Secret of my success. All done. My greatest masterpiece. The secret of my success. Believe in the power of the mushroom.
It can either be a really cool decal or something shitty, so just keep that in mind. You can also collect special skill mushrooms to trade with the Magistrate to get better decals later on. I'd recommend not eating them if you find them on the ground. This Johnny Cab guy from Total Recall sticking out of the wall is Tetsuo. He acts as the online raid mode, which is the main part of the online game. You pick a faction, which is either a state or country, and invade other players' lobbies to steal their money, splithium, or you can even kidnap a body and take it back home with you. It's an easy way to get gold if you're in a pinch. However, if you lose a raid, you'll lose all your items and decals attached to your character, so pick your battles wisely. Here, you can also set up your characters to defend your waiting room from invaders. Honestly, it's a big waste of time. Most invaders can just stunlock your dudes anyway, and your characters are just better used for expeditions. Here's the aforementioned fighter freezer. You can keep all your characters in here, or you can buy new ones. The further along in the tower you make it, the higher the rank character you can build. You also need to buy space in the freezer from Tetsuo. A not so obvious feature is the expedition mode. This is where you can send the fighters you're not currently using into the other players' worlds to collect gold, splithium, and be a general pain in the ass by spawning as a hater in their world. The longer you send out your characters, the more shit they'll come back with, so it's worth checking out. This fountain in the center restores all your HP and acts as a portal to the arcade. Here, you can pick up side quests from the slightly annoyed Detox.
No!
She'll let you select up to 10 active quests, which all have different degrees of difficulty and prizes to collect. You can use these quests to scoop up some easy death medals. Over at the arcade cabinet is Maijin. He's the resident pro gamer, and he'll pull a capsule toy out of his Jufro to give you a gameplay tip. And they're actually pretty useful, so talk to him often. There's a machine in the back that allows you to watch all the unlocked cutscenes, and I would kick myself if I didn't mention this radio over here. The radio allows you to choose from over 100 songs for your waiting room theme. And since it's the place you'll visit most frequently, you'll want to make sure you pick something you can listen to on repeat. With 100 available songs handpicked by famed Silent Hill composer Akira Yamaoka, I'm sure there's a few in there for just about everyone's taste. The selection is mostly nu metal or yellow rock, but I think the selection makes sense thematically with the over-the-top Rob Zombie movie quality, think House of a Thousand Corpses style, of guts and comedy blending into one crazy thing known as Let It Die, so I don't have any issues with it. Also, a neat little fact is Akira asked everyone to include the words Let It Die or write a song specifically for the game, so they're all original songs.
いろんなアーティストとレッド・イット・ダイなんかコラボしてるらしいじゃないですか。
そうですね。僕もずっとゲームの音楽やってて、日本の今若いロックバンド、100組に集まってもらって、レッド・イット・ダイっていうオリジナルの曲を書いて。
サプライズジャパニーズドラムス。Okay? Ready?
You don't see that every day. The downside is you can only listen to these songs in the waiting room, and there's not an MP3 player you can take up into the tower, so I was a little bummed out about that. And finally, you'll get a package from Death Prime every 19 hours for free. This package contains a rare item, decal, or death medals, so be sure to check it out once a day. Okay, I know I dropped a lot of information, and this review thus far was compromised of me basically explaining how the game works, but there's just so many little mechanics and bits to learn that I'm still learning how it all works. Maybe I should start with the issues I have with Let It Die. And there aren't many to speak of, but I still think they're worth mentioning. Graphically, this isn't the best looking game the PS4 has to offer, and honestly, you get what you pay for, which is nothing. I think the lower detail and the frequent texture pop-ins were concessions made to keep this game running at a solid 60 frames, while still maintaining the online features. It's not the biggest deal, but it is really distracting every time I go to the item shop and watch Space Hitler's clothes grow details. Maybe that's not an issue on PS4 Pros, I don't know, I don't own one, so if you do and you have this game, let me know. Another issue I have is with how the raid mode works. If someone raids your waiting room, you have no real way to defend it other than relying on your AI-controlled avatars to defend it from some random stranger of some random skill. There is absolutely no way for you to hop into the fray and defend it on your own. It sucks coming to the waiting room after a good run to see it engulfed in flames. It's really inconsequential anyways, because after you visit the arcade, your waiting room is magically restored and it's business as usual. The raid mode just feels like an afterthought, and I would have liked to see it expanded in other ways to defend it in the future. What's really bizarre is that if you try to travel to your waiting room while someone is raiding you, you'll be sent to the dubstep bonus level, where you punch out a doppelganger of yourself in slow motion for bonus splithium. Sure, a slow motion dubstep fight is the obvious solution when you don't want to bother adding a PvP element to your game in Grasshopper's book, I guess. And finally, what I consider to be the most egregious fact is that Let It Die is an always online title. So when the servers are down, or you lose connection, you die, or you can't access the game at all. This happened to me when I was playing the game near launch. Given there was a lot of maintenance to be expected, but I still think there's no reason why this game needs to be connected 24/7, as most of the online features are passive at best, with the exception of raid mode. But even that's a stretch. I would have taken a screen cap of the error logs I received, but the game prevents you from screen capping or using the share button to capture them, which is kind of fucking shady. I wish you could just pay a set amount for an offline version of Let It Die, like pay $60 and you can just climb the tower on your own and not worry about all this PvP shit. In this scenario, Grasshopper still gets money and the player gets Suda Souls. Everybody wins. For a free-to-play online game, it just seems sad that the least interesting aspects are the online components of it. Anyways, those are the only gripes I have with Let It Die. I truly find the game to be a great time, albeit not for anyone with a low tolerance for games where frustration is the main mechanic. The game feels like a giant hodgepodge of little ideas and Suda's personal influences coming together into one gruesome grindhouse stylized crazy game, which is pretty much how you could describe most of Suda51's games. I know it's a tad off kilter and clunky in places, but I think it adds to the game's overall charm, and I feel that's what many fans of Grasshopper, and myself, have come to expect from this little company. I'm gonna be real with you guys. At the time of this review, I'm only on floor 30, and I've read there are 40 plus floors to the main game, and that's not including the back floors. I know that there are more floors and secrets to be unveiled in the future, and they're gonna continually update it as it goes along. If you do check out this game, I highly recommend you subscribe to the official Let It Die account on Twitter, which is run by Uncle Death himself. He'll keep you posted about the upcoming maintenance and new features to be added or removed from the game. Look, Let It Die is highly ambitious, stylistically off the wall, but it's far from a perfect game, and I just can't put it down. It's so fucking good, and bad, but good. I've played it every day since it launched, and I think if you have a taste for the bizarre and the careful strategy of the Soul series, then you won't find anything like Let It Die out there. Don't take my word for it. With the small price tag of just owning a PS4 and a stable internet connection, what have you got to lose? Who knows, by the time you watch this review, the game might be an entirely different pay-to-win model experience, or, worst case scenario, completely dead and offline. Whatever the case may be, I hope this game provides Grasshopper with enough revenue to fund a new creation. Or perhaps that rumored HD remaster of Killer 7? Maybe Dad51 can send some of that death metal money my way to make up for 28 years of back child support. Fuck you, Dad, I had to wear Umbro growing up. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you all next time.
Let it die!
Let it die!
Let it die.